Sometimes after you've completely finished with an image, you've done all of the processing, it's a good idea to just put it to one side and then come back and revisit it a bit later and reprocess it again from scratch, because sometimes a completely fresh perspective can give you a different idea on how the image should look. And that's what I'm going to do in this video. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me again. In this video, I'm going to go back and completely reprocess an image from scratch to see if I can come up with a final version that I prefer to the version that I originally had. The image is this one, which was the only image I shot in my exploration video, and it was shot at Elche Dam with a long lens to zoom in on some detail. Now I have to say this image has been a problem from start to finish. It was difficult to shoot. I was standing on a stone staircase. It was very cramped. I was in direct sunlight, so I was finding it really difficult to see what I was actually shooting. I had to shield the top of the lens from the sunlight coming down on it to make sure I didn't get any problems with flare. And even when I got it back onto the computer, for some reason this particular RAW file Lightroom and Photoshop doesn't like. Whenever I did anything with it, Lightroom kept freezing and performing badly, and it just caused me all sorts of problems. Add to that the fact that I was kind of rushing to get the video out because I'm a little bit behind on my video creation at the moment, and I'm now not really sure how much I like the image. I knew it was never going to be a great image, but I thought it was going to be better than what I'm now seeing when I look at it on the screen. Now, it's often a good idea to put an image to one side for a few days, go back and revisit it. And in this case, I'm going right back to the RAW file and I'm going to reprocess it and see what it looks like. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do and you're not already a subscriber, then please consider hitting the subscribe button. And if you're already a subscriber, then thank you very much. Normally I would go back and process this from the RAW file, but because for some reason Lightroom doesn't like this RAW file, it keeps playing up, I'm actually going to process it from a TIFF file that I've created. And all I've done in Lightroom is some very basic global adjustments to this, which I'll put up on the screen now. And you can see there's nothing too significant there. There's some color correction because I was using a 6-stop ND filter and some basic tonal changes. I also did my lens correction and chromatic aberration stuff as well. But I'm going to use this TIFF file now as the file that I process or reprocess, and hopefully that will mean I don't have any problems with performance in Lightroom like I would do if I was trying to show you this with the original RAW file. So let's get into Lightroom and have a look. Okay, so this is the image in Lightroom after those basic adjustments. I'll just get rid of some extra panels there so you can see the scene. Okay, so looking at this image, there's a few things now that I'm thinking I might want to do. The first thing is, I actually think this might be better if it was much more contrasty, if there was a much bigger contrast between the white of the water and the light on this bush compared to the rocks around it. I'm also thinking that actually the image would benefit from being a much simpler composition with fewer elements in it, because I like this big sheet of water here and I like this bush as a kind of a lead into it, but I'm not actually sure that this extra cascade down in the bottom here is adding that much to the image. Also, this rock here, in particular this part of the rock, was in direct sunlight, and even using the circular polarizer I've got a really bright spot on that rock there which I'm finding really distracting. So I'm thinking there might be a bit of significant cropping to go on here. The original image was cropped 16:9, but I'm thinking I might go a bit more extreme. Okay, so let's see what we're going to do with this image. I think the first thing I'll do is I'll create a virtual copy of it to work on, so I can go back to this one if I make a mistake. And I'm going to start off by bringing the overall exposure of this image down. Oh, bring it down a stop, which makes it a lot darker. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the brush tool and I'm going to put that brush tool up at about a stop, maybe a fraction under. But the flow all the way up to 100%, and I'll start off with a big brush and the auto masking is turned off, and I'm going to brush, basically brushing back in the exposure level that I had on the original image. And this of course is adding a load of contrast. Keep a check on where it's covering at the moment. What I'm going to do now is make the brush a bit smaller. And I'm now going to turn auto masking on, and I'm going to start to brush in all around here. I'm not actually too bothered because I think with the way I'm going to do the crop, this rock isn't going to be a problem. I'm still going to do it this way and down here as well. I'll brush all this in for now, but I don't think this is going to feature in the final image. A bit of a problem with blown highlights there. If that bit ends up in the final image, I'll fix that later. Let's just have a look at my overall mask. Yeah, okay. The other place I think I'm going to add the exposure back in is on this bush over here. Just make that just basically on the bits that were catching the light. Like that. And maybe up on this bit of green up here, just to make it stand out a bit more. Okay. And then, as I said, I think a crop to simplify this image significantly will help. The original image was cropped 16 by 9. I'm going to try this first of all as a 2:1. No. If I go 2:1, I'm still got this lump of rock sticking in here, which I'm not liking. So I'm going to go 16 by 7. 16 by 7 is a crop that you'd quite often use for a pano, but this is still a big file, so I can get away with it. And I'm just going to bring it up so that that rock is completely out of the frame, but it leaves that bush right in that bottom corner there. Now that is a much, much simpler composition. Much simpler. I also think this would benefit maybe from a slight sort of colour balance change in the falling water, which is pretty much the highlights. So I'm going to use the split toning, and if you click on this little rectangle here, you can bring up this tool, you can use the eyedropper and you can kind of play around. So if I push it all the way up, you see you're getting a very blue tone in there, which doesn't look very good. Just a subtle bit of split toning in those highlights just makes that water look a bit more, makes it look a bit more silvery actually. Yeah. And then I think we can probably put in a little bit of a post-crop vignette. Be about there. The only thing I'm seeing now is this top left hand corner has got a bright patch in, which I don't really like. There's a bright patch down here in the bottom left as well, but the one in the top left I'm not liking. So what I'm going to do there is just pop a radial filter over that. Double click effect to zero it, and I'm just going to bring the exposure down and the shadows and the highlights in that corner. That just darkens that down and stops it being distracting. And I think that's a much simpler, cleaner and stronger image. There might be a little bit more to be done. A little tiny bit of brightness in this rock here might help, just a tiny little bit. You know, maybe sort of there. Bring the flow way down. And just put a little bit of brightness in there. Like that. And there. And that is the final image. Okay, so that's it. The final image done. I'm going to have to live with them for a few more days to decide which one I prefer. But at the moment, I think the reprocessed version is a stronger image. Mostly because it's got more punch to it and it's a much more simple composition. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please consider giving it a like or a share or both. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, remember about that subscribe button. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think. Comments down below. And as always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. So, thank you very much. And until the next video, bye.